to good of the whole and the connection field. And actually, we are bringing forth something that's evolving inside of the connection field called the connection water field. And I'm Shelley Darling. I'm here hosting with Malini Rajendran from India. And we have a beautiful surprise for you. 52 weeks, really holding up the world water. 2021 is the World Water Year, and holding up the World Water Law, the beautiful proposed expression for people to take into their communities, into their cities and governments, to really bring forth this proposal of a worldwide consciousness around water. And so the connection water field is an evolving expression inside Good of the Whole, which is helping people to really come together and to feel who we are in relationship to where we live, understanding, feeling more deeply, and falling in love with our rivers and watersheds. And so this today and every Friday, we are now coming together at 1:30 Eastern time for the origin stories of rivers and lakes from around the world. And today is our first offering, the first of 52 weeks. And Malini will open, and we invite you to come into the Zoom room, but also just to take this and share this as a way to inform your children, your families, you know, people that are really close to you, and schools and communities, just a little bit more about let's get to know our rivers and lakes around the world. So with that, Malini.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much. And welcome to everyone on this journey of rediscovering the stories of our rivers and lakes from around the world. We start with India, and we will be happy and look forward to moving to hear stories from other parts of the world. All good stories start with the words, "Long, long ago, in a faraway land, all rivers and celestial beings descended on earth from the sky." The stories of the rivers of the world began 200 million years ago, when the landmass called Gondwana started separating. The great celestial walk of Shiva started 200 million years ago, and this is how the story is told in India. The subcontinent of India moved 6 times faster as this great separation started, and kept moving northwards and southwards. The name of the southern supercontinent has a very unique origin. The continent was named by the Australian scientist Edward Suez after a region in central northern India called the Forest of the Gonds. The Gonds are an ancient tribe who live in central India, and they have a very highly evolved social structure. The women and the men have an amazing interaction and power structure in their communities. And this was the reason the continent was named after this group, is because India had been part of this great Gondwana super land. And as you can see, these are the Gond women in a dance ritual, one of their dance rituals that they have to celebrate different seasons and times of the year. So when the Indian plate broke away from the African plate and started its journey upwards and eastwards, another great cosmic dance occurred again 50 million years ago. Every time there is a huge seismic event, it was called the dance of Shiva. And the mountain range that arose from this dance and this tectonic plate movement was called the Shivalik mountain range. Then 18,000 years ago, there was an ice age that covered all of Europe and North America. The story grows that there was a great battle that emerged between the gods in the sky, and out of the energy that that battle consumed, a great ice age descended on earth. But because the rule of King Himavan, that is Raja Himavan as the Himalayas are called, all great mountains are called kings because they are seen as the benefactory protectors of the land. But the land south of the great Himalayan mountain range that was under the protection of Raj Himavan was saved from the great European ice age, and therefore the civilization south of the Himalayas thrived. Now let's go back a million years again. This mountain range that emerged from this cosmic dance of Shiva, which is the moving of the tectonic plates, resulted in a mountain range that covers 7,000 kilometers from Hanoi in Vietnam, right up to the Caspian Sea, beyond Tehran into the Caspian Sea. And this wide mountain range served and nourished over 3.5 billion people on this planet. These mountains are water storage tanks. The great mountain ranges are called kings, and they had daughters whom they bequeathed to humanity, and these daughters flowed down as rivers to sustain, nourish, and allow civilizations to flourish on their banks. So this is the background of the story of the origins of all the mighty rivers in traditional Indian wisdom, and I'm sure around the whole world. All rivers are goddesses because they have nurtured human civilizations on their banks. They are seen as goddesses who descend down on earth. They are considered the daughters or granddaughters of Brahma, the creator god, who sends down to earth his daughters in humanity's call for sustenance and survival. Our rivers are divine and powerful goddesses to be revered, respected, honored, and protected. The river is also seen as the one who solves all our problems and takes us towards moksha, which is salvation or ascension, whichever way you look at it. Our rivers are divine and powerful goddesses, and their waters are always, always referred to as holy waters. Over the years, actually, a cultural framework of treating all rivers as sacred has been created by the establishment of what we call Tirath Sthan. And this is true of every part of the world. Every river has a sacred pilgrimage spot, and many pilgrimage spots along the rivers. And the reason why these pilgrimage spots were created was to ensure that the rivers were treated and respected as sacred. So today we see the story of River Saraswati. Great civilizations emerged on the banks of this mighty river that spread far and wide, that went as far as the ancient West, which was Israel, and up to Hanoi, which was the ancient Far East. In the ancient cycles of time, many, many years ago, when the world was populated by evolved human races of sages and rishis, great thinkers and seers, who were constantly seeking to establish a tangible link between gods in the heavens and the earth. And these ascended masters who walked the earth had the ability and the power to travel freely between earth and heaven. And they were forever seeking a perennial quest of how humanity can achieve and bridge this gap of knowledge that exists in the heavens and be brought down to earth for the benefit of all mankind. So the sages and the rishis, they went up into the heavens and they requested Lord Vishnu, which in Indian law is the creator, and asked him to send down to Mother Earth the holy fire of knowledge from the heavens. Well, Lord Vishnu, as usual, was a great management expert, and he never did anything himself. He always delegated powers and delegated tasks to people who were most equipped with the skills and the talent to carry out that task to the best of their abilities. So he diverted this request to Lord Brahma, and Brahma is the official holder and keeper of all eternal knowledge. Brahma agreed to comply. There is, even in the gods, there is a chain of command and they follow orders and they listen to each other's wishes. But this knowledge needed to be converted into a physical form, and it would have created a fire of such enormity that it would have not only burnt the earth, it would have burnt the heavens also. And then this fire was therefore christened Bada Bhagini, that is the monumental fire of destiny. So who should transport this holy fire into the earth? Well, Brahma summons Saraswati to help him in this task, because at the end of the day, it takes the cleverness and intelligence of a woman to bring any idea into fruition. So symbolically also, Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge, and hence she is the only one whose energies could successfully contain this huge celestial fire of knowledge called Bada Bhagini. And Bada means large, and Bhagini means the large owner of all. So she decides that she needs an element that is fluid, fast, and can counteract the heat of the fire. And she decides it is going to be water. The heat of the knowledge, of her knowledge, evaporates her into the water element, and she descends on earth. She then takes the form of a river that extends across heaven and earth in all its mightiness. She receives the fire of knowledge from Brahma, and she deftly falls onto the earth from the heavens above to flow. Now, before we go into how she comes down to earth, let us look at the iconography of the goddess Saraswati. She is Brahma's equivalent. She is the one that manifests the knowledge into various arts and skills. So she has music, she has learning, she has the knowledge of the numbers, and she is the receptacle of the source of abundance. Although the goddess of abundance is Lakshmi, but without Saraswati, without the knowledge, you cannot achieve abundance. So she is the source of abundance, and that is shown in the image of the swan, the lotus, and the baskets of fruits in front of her. So she descends on earth, flowing across the entire northern Indian continent from the Himalayas to the Arabian Sea. This is a distance of around about 2,600 kilometers. This was a vast and splendid river. The rivers of the holy waters are supposed to have flowed from the Himalayas into the sea, nourishing the land along the way. And it is said that on her banks, the Vedas and so many other great scriptures were written, because in every scripture she is referred to with different names, but easily identified as Saraswati. For thousands of years, great civilizations up to the western parts of Asia, like you can see right here they spread right into Afghanistan, flourished on her banks. And recent studies have actually confirmed the abandonment of many, many archaeological sites showing very advanced civilizations on the banks of what was this river. The trade networks and seafaring Melua merchants spread far and wide from the banks of this mighty river. carrying all the knowledge and all the information right up to South America, because we see a lot of similarities in the customs that are there in South America, and there are artifacts that have been found and metallurgical seals that have been found that trace to this commonality. Then suddenly the river dried up and disappeared. And whenever a seismic or a cosmic event happens, Shiva is responsible for it. So Shiva decides to dance and the earth begins to shake. 6,000 years ago, because of Shiva's dance, the plates moved again and tore up the Shivalik ranges and created what is now called the Yamuna Fault. So a mighty tributary of the river Saraswati, the Yamuna, that was flowing from north to eastern ranges, suddenly moved, flowing from west, north to the northeastern to the western, southern western seas, suddenly decided and took a 180-degree turn and flowed east into the Bay of Bengal. This story is often dramatized and said that Saraswati, Brahma was a bit of a ladies' man, and Saraswati didn't like what he was doing, chasing other women. And she sort of got into a huff and a fit and called upon her sisters and said, I think it's time for you guys to now cause a descent and start moving the other way. Ancient law has a beautiful and simple way of talking about great events so that the simple common people understood it without going into the geological and the scientific gobbledygook that loses the essence of these events. Then again, 4,000 years ago, another movement occurred in the Shivalik ranges. And of course, again, it was Shiva who decided he had been standing still for a long time and needed to do a bit of a dance to get all his energies moving. So the river that was going southwards into the river Saraswati, that too decided to take a 180-degree turn and started moving westward into a canyon that arose from it. We will listen to the story of the Satluj and its movement and its emergence in the episodes that follow. So, but as the centuries passed, this story moved into the realms of myth and belief, and religion came together with the invasions that happened over India and the way indigenous stories across the globe were either suppressed or removed from the memories of generation that followed. Saraswati passed into the realm of the folklore and was forgotten. But now there is so much of research going on, and so much thanks to geospatial satellite imagery and the entire project on the Saraswati Sindhu civilizations, because understanding this river is understanding the history of a wide spread of humanity, starting from Hanoi right up till the Caspian Sea and going out into the South American continent. So during the Vedic period, Saraswati was recognized as one of the greatest river that nurtured the people living on its bank. And almost all the songs of the Vedas were about this river, were sung and written, and she was called the best goddess. But an interest about this river was that because she brought down with her the fire of knowledge, when she emerged, her waters were warm. And even now, when people dig at places in the soil, and she does emerge, there are places where the ancient ones and the priests of those regions will take you to the point where they will take you to a dry sand riverbed, and they will allow you to dig up that riverbed, and bits of water will emerge from under the earth. That water is warm. Whereas all waters on the planet are cold, the Saraswati river's water is still warm, even when you dig it from under the ground. And that is the beauty. Now, in the Himalayas, this is an image of what is called the Sagar Manthan sculpture. And interestingly enough, this is a huge big sculpture in Bangkok airport. This is a metaphorical sculpture that describes that when the mountain, I mean, you know, the mountain was used as the fulcrum point to use, you know, like when butter is churned in the old days, a stick is taken and threads are tied and two people pull it and pull the milk and the cream and the butter emerges from it. So the same way the oceans were churned. And when the oceans were churned, riches after riches emerged from it. And all these riches flowed down as the rivers. And this is what we see as the wealth of the herbs, the wealth of the plants, the alluvial minerals in the alluvial soils, the gems and the gold that we find in riverbeds. Anywhere in the world, the gold is found in the riverbeds. The metaphorical story that is told is that when the oceans were churned, great gifts of nature emerged one after the other. And the final gift that emerged was a jar of Amrit, which is the elixir of immortality. And in truth, water is the elixir of immortality. But yes, there are many other interesting, fascinating stories which other rivers connect to as to what happened and who ran away with this elixir of immortality, this Amrit, and the battles that ensued. Well, human nature shows up even between the gods and the heavens. So just to briefly recap, the major Himalayan river systems, of which the Saraswati, and you can see this is where the Yamuna decides to turn. The Yamuna originally was a tributary. It decided to turn and move the other way. The Jhelum decided to turn and move into another river basin and then emerge into a gorge. So over time and history of our civilization, different stories about rivers have emerged, and they keep emerging and they keep adding wonder and awe to the feel of all rivers, not just in India. And our traditions, all rivers flow through many states. All over the world, the rivers are never contained to one state or one territory. But as they flow along different states, they carry with them the different traditions and cultural practices and rituals of each territory. And this should actually be a unifying feature amongst the rivers, amongst the people, because the rivers carry stories. It's no longer a question of your culture, my culture. The river is teaching us, come, learn, listen, enjoy, and share each other's cultures. And this is how tradition and awe for the river, the respect for the river needs to be built, has been built for centuries. We seem to have forgotten it somehow or the other. But with the creation of sacred spots and Tirth skulls, fortunately in India, we still worship our rivers, even though over time, they have been witness to our foolish ways. And now almost all rivers in India lie polluted and ravaged, and their stories have been forgotten. And that is why we invite you to the Connection Waterfield for another fascinating story on the origin of the rivers and lakes of the world. And thank you for sharing and being part of this journey of the rivers of India, starting with the River Saraswati.
Thank you, Malini. Oh my gosh. I just want to, begin the invitation for people that are going to start to catch this on Facebook to really come in to the Zoom room. So these offerings will be for the first half hour, but that second half hour, we're going to leave open for really, what I'm experiencing is the exaltation. I love what you said, water is the elixir of immortality. That's this understanding. And so we get to sort of bleed our borders by coming here and getting to know, I mean, getting to know the origin stories. For me, it's like you're getting to know the people. You're getting to understand the voice of the land and the voice of the water and how that, you know, intermixes with each other. So for the next half hour, we invite you into the Zoom room, and you can go to connectionfielddigest.org and get that link. And we'll be here every Friday. And this connection water field is really expanding into a lot of different offerings. But here on Fridays, I feel like a kid. You know, I mean, I didn't learn any of this. Where have I ever learned this? So this is such an opportunity. So we thank Malini, and we're going to go off Facebook, and we're going to stay in the Zoom room, and we invite you to come play. Please share this out, and we'll begin to discover our rivers and our relationships to our watersheds in a new and unique way. So blessings. Thank you.